The expert view gives us access to the more detailed sound shaping parameters of the piano. Now, the hammer section simulates the force of the impact that's produced when the piano hammer strikes the fork of the piano. Now, we have the stiffness control, and it interacts with force. Stiffness determines whether the hammer is soft or hard, and as we turn it clockwise, we'll get a harder hammer sound. Kind of sharper, more brittle, and lower values are kind of softer and warmer and more mellow. Now the force knob adjusts the amplitude of the impact of the hammer on the fork. So as we dial it left, the impact is very soft. And the stiffness doesn't have a huge impact on it. As we dial this up, the hammer gets stronger. So with a softer stiffness, but a louder amplitude, we can shape the sound to get some attack without it being brittle. And here we can get a harder hammer with a bit of a warmer tone. Now we can optionally add noise in. This controls the amount of noise generated during the impact between the hammer and the fork. And as we dial it up, we're going to get more amplitude or volume of the noise. We can control the pitch, the center pitch of the noise. So here's more subtle in the lower ranges, but a little more discordant in the higher frequencies. And the decay knob adjusts how long the noise signal takes to fade out. So this is very unnatural sounding. But a wide range of sound design possibilities. For a more natural sound, we generally tend towards shorter decays and a slightly lower frequency pitch is a bit more subtle. So with the right combination, you can get a wide variety of timbre and tone from the piano. Now with key tracking, as we turn this knob right, it'll make the hammer stiffer as the note pitches increase. So if I dial this down, the lower notes will have a softer sound and the higher notes will be brighter, like on a real piano. And vice versa. Here, the lower notes will have the stiffer attack. And the key knob will always operate relative to the base value of the stiffness knob. Now, this key knob interacts with the force value. So, for example, if I dial a lower force down and I dial the key knob to the right, the strength of the impact of the hammer will be higher for higher notes and lower for lower notes. For a nice natural sound, and in reverse. The lower notes will have a higher force value and the higher range notes will have a softer force. And with the noise associated key tracking knob, as we turn it to left, it'll increase the noise for lower notes and reduce it for higher notes, so you can get a kind of thicker, grungier sound down low. And you can exaggerate it with that in a longer decay. and then cleaner as they get higher. Here I've got one of the reed-based instruments, and we have the velocity knobs, which control the amount of variation of the stiffness knob in this case and the force knob in this case, based on the value of the MIDI velocity. Now, if you're playing, that's how hard you're striking the key, and if your part is programmed, it's the velocity value assigned to the notes. So here, the neutral position for velocity modulation is all the way to the left. So when it's dialed down completely like that, there's no modulation of these parameters based on incoming velocity. Whereas the key tracking has a neutral position at 12 o'clock where it's based around C4, so notes above and below C4 are scaled accordingly around the stiffness or force value based on how much they're offset from the 12 o'clock position. So here I'll play you an example with a series of chords played rhythmically with the velocities scaled from lowest to highest, and with this all the way down, they'll all sound the same. Now, as I dial the velocity knob up, it'll vary the amount, in this case of force, based around this value. So here we'll hear those first chords much quieter, and as they get higher velocities, they'll become more aggressive and strident. And of course, it's based around the force value, so if I lower that, they won't get quite as aggressive. Now, the same thing applies to the stiffness velocity value. So here, as I dial this up, it'll modulate the stiffness based around this value, and I'll put the force up a bit higher, and you can hear as this stiffness changes with the velocities, the effect it has on the timbre and tone of the reed. So those higher velocity notes have a kind of warmer, softer tone, whereas if I increase this, we'll get a different effect. So there's a wide variety of tone shaping available with stiffness and force and scaling based on velocity and or key range. So that's the hammer module.